Let's rock.
Hey, I'm Dave Langguth of Kim Mitchell Bands. Let's rock.
Okay, we'll get to some other gigs that you've done
Yep.
in a second, but a few months ago, I went to see Styx in
Mhm.
Montreal. And in my opinion, Styx right now has one of the best drummers going in rock and roll. Top,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And uh, I, I see Styx as much as I can, but the thing that blew me away this last time was there were times when he made Styx sound like Metallica. Like it was so heavy and so full, right?
Mhm.
Like even a song like a ballady type song, his drums were so powerful and
Mhm.
so, I mean, it was unbelievable to listen to. Now, without too much ass kissing right here, the first time I saw you with Kim, I noticed
Mhm.
this thing. There was so much more fullness than the time I had seen him previously.
Mhm.
And the guy before you was really good too. I can't remember his name. Sutherland?
Yep. Chris Sutherland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
But for some, I don't know what it is, what the difference is between you and Chris, but it just sounded so much fuller.
Mhm.
What is that? As a non-drummer, I'm not
Um,
a drummer. I love
yeah,
drums.
and without comparing, the because everyone brings a different thing to the table. I just know how I approach it. So, like, here's what I do when I play with an artist, when I play with anybody. Is the first thing is well, part of it is like is listening. That's for me. I listen as hard as I can, and my mixes, example monitor mixes and stuff like that, I have a pretty equal balance. I hear everything, like and I use in-ear monitors typically, which helps a lot. um so it doesn't matter what the venue is like. It doesn't matter if it's like super boomy or super echoey or completely dry like a closet. Every show to me sounds like Madison Square Gardens.
Nice.
It always sounds the same. I have one of those X32 rack units, and already has a presets in it and EQing and compression and reverbs and everything. So all of my shows, for the most part, sound the same. So puts me in a nice comfort zone where I can relax and just hear what's going on. Um, so the next thing is, like I said, so listening to the people in the band and making sure that everything is a good balance between all of the instruments. If you just hear yourself super loud in your mix, that's not going to help you blend and hear what the feel is of the other people playing in the band. So I'll take that to a studio perspective as well. So if I'm recording in a studio, I do several things sometimes depending on the song or depending on how, if I'm playing to a guide track, for example. If I have a guide track that's incredibly strong, like it's solid as hell, and I can feel the pocket already, I'll have a good balance of where my drums in relation to the volume of the band is. If I'm playing to a track that the groove is suffering, and maybe the bass is pulling in this direction, the guitar is pulling in this direction, and the singing is kind of like going across, and it's not in a pocket somewhere, I'll start adjusting the balance of that mix until it sounds the grooviest. And then I'll probably take that whole mix and make it so quiet that I can barely hear it. And I will use it just as a reference so I don't get lost in the song. And then I use my own feel in my own pocket, um, dominantly, to lay down a drum track that way. I can lay down a pretty solid drum track like that where I'm pretty dominant in the mix, but it still never feels the same as when it's kind of moving with the music. But the music has to be solid. The music has to be in a pocket as well to be able to do that. So it's also it's that revolving door kind of thing, or that cycle of, like, if you want a good show with the audience when you're going to play with a band, you have to you have to have a party on stage. Everyone's going to be having a party on stage, and then
Right.
the crowd receives the party, and then the crowd comes back like this, and then everyone on stage feels like this, and but it starts on the stage, right? And then once it starts, it starts this little spiral between the audience and the band, right? I see no difference between me playing drums and Kim Mitchell playing guitar and Peter Fredette playing bass and Ray Coburn on keys. Because if I'm feeling super confident and I'm settled and I'm listening to them and feeling what they're doing, they feel what I'm doing, and it starts doing that. And it happens like this. It happens very, very quickly, right? Sometimes there's rough nights, depends, you might be really tired from flying around in airplanes or something. And everybody kind of feels a little edgy or in a little different spot. But at some point, and hopefully it's within the first four bars of the song, professionals usually go like this. They settle down, they calm down. And you have to be vulnerable and give. I don't know if you can see this on my chest here. You have to
Yeah.
give, oh, my heart, I you have to let yourself be vulnerable to give to the other players in the band, and receive it. And you keep it just go, like I said, it's just a revolving door and it just keeps going around. And it seems like once the pocket happens, it's easy to stay there. And when
So,
you fall out of the pocket, it's like it gets scary. It's like, oh, because you can really hear when you slip out.
okay, so two things. Number
Yeah.
one, I think 99.9% of the audience doesn't know if you fall out of the pocket, right?
I think that they do. Well,
You think
let's say
so?
99.9. I bet you 80% of the audience, they know something's not as good, or they know something isn't right. Doesn't mean that they know that you fell out of the pocket. Um, my pocket analogy I always like to think of is a snow globe. I love snow globes, you know, and you've got your little thing, and you got the little people inside and the little house, and you see that there's a little beautiful little town. If you took the glass off it, poured the water out, well, that little snow that falls down, that's not going to fall down either. You've just got this almost like a 2D looking picture, right? And it's not very special. It's not very shiny. It's not really happening. And you look at it and go, well, that's a little town. Okay, cool. But then you put a piece of glass on top of it, and you don't put the water in it, and it looks like a little town with a piece of glass on top of it. When you put the water in, it starts to liquefy and it starts to do something to it. And the way it reflects through that globe, you start to get this sphere. And I call it like this sphere of groove. Um, I can break down into detail how to achieve a groove. Ultimately, when a band is grooving, it's not a tangible thing. It's like that snow globe. You can't really go inside and touch it, but you can see it. And then when you turn this icing on the cake, when you turn it upside down, the snow starts to fall. It's so three-dimensional and so glassy looking. And when you hear any Scorpions is a great band. Have you ever gone to a Scorpions concert?
I absolutely have.
Absolute huge pocket when that band plays. So when you watch a band like that play and they achieve this huge pocket, there's this thing that's almost like a globe that you see appear around the band, and they look larger than life. They sound larger than life. If the venue they're playing in is only like a rock club, they sound this big. They sound bigger than the rock bar they're playing in, because they're creating this intangible thing around the music that you can't see it,
Like
but
an
you can
aura.
feel it. You can feel it. Exactly. It's like an aura. And when the groove isn't happening, it just sounds like kind of, and then depending how not groovy the band is, it can start to sound messy,
Right.
because groove is time and feel, and different instruments reach your ear at milliseconds, different speed, different times, and it starts to, you can't see the picture anymore. Instead of seeing this, you start to see this blurred thing.
Right.
And yeah, that's
That
how
makes
I
sense.
describe
That
the
makes sense.
groove. Yeah.
The first time I saw Eddie Van Halen, I remember loving the show, obviously, like my jaw was on the floor, but
Mhm.
he was doing his guitar solo. I'll never forget this as long as I live. And Alex came in and just started laying down a little beat during this little bluesy part of his guitar solo. And it
Hmm.
was the best part of the whole night. These two totally connected. No
Right. You
bass,
felt
no
it. You
vocal.
felt it happening. Yeah.
Right. Like it was just so
Yeah.
powerful, right? And no one was listening to the words, and no one had ever heard this stuff before, but
Right.
it was just perfect.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it is, just the connection with the
Yeah.
other musicians.
Yeah. I'm an honest cat, so I'm gonna reveal one little thing here. Sometimes during shows, it depends on the type of song. I might use a metronome. For me, it's typically if it's songs that are like Wild Party. It's four on the floor and it's driving and it's
Right.
relentless and it doesn't let up. So something like that, I'll turn on a click track. It just keeps everything like that.
Is that
Um,
bad? Why did you have to say you're an honest guy? Is that a bad thing?
to some people, it's like, why use a click, But here, I'll get to that. Um, it depends on, again, it depends on the song. Kim knows when that metronome is going. He knows, he can feel it. And sometimes it's like, hey, maybe lose it for that song because he wants it to move like that. I don't mind that as well. But again, that's give and take. But at the same time, you ever heard anybody use the term plowing?
Yeah.
I thought I came up with that term,
I've heard that.
plowing. So the way I think of plowing when I'm playing with a band, um, is you have to, at moments, sometimes things get edgy. And maybe the guitar is on top a little bit, but the bass is a little too far behind or something like that. There's only so much bending you can do. It's like a train going down the track, but there's a little elastic give to it. So you can kind of sway like this as you're going down the track. It kind of moves, but it always is going the same velocity. You have to be careful. If you go too far, you're going to fall off the track. So at those moments where it's stretching too far is when you go into plow mode. And that's a little more where you have to just accept. Sounds a little and everyone's a pro. Everyone comes back and everyone settles again. That would be the moment of plowing. So I think there's a balance between plowing sometimes and bending.
Right. Right. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, now, wow. This is a lot. This is like a drum lesson. This is awesome. So the other thing I was going to say about the sound of you and Styx is the reason it sounds fuller is because the band is connecting more. Maybe
I think so.
the band is better now than they were 20 years ago.
It's milliseconds as well, right? It's like grooves milliseconds. It's literally milliseconds, 3 milliseconds. You can hear that. You can feel it. You can feel a flam in 3 milliseconds.
Right.
I know it sounds crazy, but it is. And it's the difference. If I hit a tom or I hit my backbeat on my snare, it's better. It better be in that place because when it hits in the pocket the way it's supposed to hit, at least the way I think it's hitting at the time when I'm doing it, um, it should hit at that mark at the deepest part of where the pocket is. And then you hear the full sustain of that drum. You hear it clearly. It's like, yeah, you know what a pre-delay is?
Yep.
So you put a pre-delay on a reverb. And when you delay it a little bit, you hear that and the reverb, you hear the attack of the snare, and then you hear that and the reverb comes after a couple milliseconds, right? And I think you're almost achieving that kind of vibe when you are playing in the pocket deeply enough that when you hit your drum, you hear the full length of that drum because it's all in the right place at the right time. So things might sound bigger that way. And that also came to talk about making the band sound bigger. If you're playing in a club this big, but everything's hitting the pocket, it can sound like it's this big.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I think the last time I saw you was at the Rideau Carleton Raceway in Ottawa. There might have been
Okay.
400 or 500 people there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I saw Kim at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
20,000 people, 15,000 people, and it was the same. Like it felt like a stadium show
Yeah.
for 100
As it should.
people. Exactly, right? And
Yeah.
it's not it's not taking a night off because there's not 10,000 people.
Hmm.
It's just a stadium show in a small venue. It was
Yeah,
fantastic. And
yeah. And pro players, it doesn't matter if there's two people. You must create that party on stage. It's like, okay, well, there's two people out there. It's like we're going to have our party on stage and we're going to play for those two people and rock their world, you know? And that's the reality because the reality is you should be happy making music with each other on stage. That's
exactly,
all it comes down to, right?
exactly. I saw Maiden in Korea, and
Mm-hmm.
there was maybe 3,000 people there, and they were doing a tour where they were playing to 60,000 people a night.
Right.
They went to Korea, and there was like 3,000 people there.
Did they
You
still do the pyros and everything?
Oh, you never would have known that there was nobody there. It was,
Yeah.
I felt bad for them, but they didn't seem to care.
Yeah.
They
There you go.
played a great show, right?
Right
Okay,
on.
let's talk about this Rush thing.
Yeah.
First of all, um, you had a show last week. How was that?
At the Elmo combo, it was really good. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. It started off a little weird. The unfortunately the guitar players I think his input crapped out. So we had to start the song a couple times, stop it again, pull every wire out of the guitar cabinets, fiddle around with the foot pedals just to change guitars and go, it's the guitar, you know. And so that's always like one of those kind of wrench in the gear, right
right,
off the start when you're all hyped up to play. Although it may have settled some butterflies,
right.
because maybe too much anticipation to come out and play. And um, yeah, I mean, it went over really well. Yeah.
Good. You know, I was talking to my buddy. I have a buddy in Ottawa, and it's basically every time Kim's anywhere near us, we go. And
Hmm.
I told him I was chatting with you, and he said, ask him about this Rush thing. His first question basically was, what's wrong with you trying to tackle that of a of a thing? I mean, it's kind of like Joe Satriani doing that Van Halen tour, right? It's
Right.
like, oh my God, man, you're doing the most difficult drum patterns probably
They're hard.
in
Yeah.
rock and roll.
There's a lot of tough shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you go? And this is not a knock on anything, but how do you go from Patio Lanterns to La Villa Strangiato?
Mm-hmm. Well, in Kim's show, there's Max Webster, and he has some pretty crazy Kim songs. So
Gary McCracken was no joke.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
But just into that kind of, I mean, first and foremost, like he's one of my heroes, Neil Peart, right?
right,
And I always loved Rush songs. I love Geddy's voice and his bass playing and Alex's beautiful guitar playing and just how they work as three guys and make that thing happen.
right.
Listening to each other.
There you go.
Yeah, and in the compositions, I'm a huge fan of the compositions. I, in particular, am an '80s Rush fan. I love all the stuff I love the moving pictures. I like Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres and all that, obviously. But I really love Power Windows and Grace Under Pressure and Hold Your Fire. And yeah,
Those
like
were great
I
albums.
like the keyboard era, and I thought that was a very cool era for Rush because the keyboards, their songwriting, the prog rock, the pop song, the cool guitar solos, the cool drum fills, it all got smushed and it came together right then and there. And it gets smushed into a 5-minute song. Right. And I'm like, wow, that's how you do it. They
Right,
still had their moments where they would rush out, I would like to call it, where they do the solo parts.
right,
And, but then they had a really nice song with cool lyrics and all that. And I like Geddy's register there too. He's still saying hi, but it wasn't really screaming the whole time, right?
right,
So definitely for me, it was very pleasing on the ears. And the stuff that Neil was doing in that era, he was doing a lot of the pattern type beats, like he was doing like in Mystic Rhythms, those kinds, or if Presto, Scars, um, Grace Under Pressure, Red Lenses,
right.
the patterns he does in another one would be The Enemy Within. He's got these tom things happening, like time stands still. He's got foot switches happening, hitting smashes, and then a clave over here, and then these patterns that he developed, kind of a tribal-ish sometimes kind of thing.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that kind of that approach that Neil had going on in some of these songs. But yeah, so it helps to be a fan of the band first and foremost. Yeah, to want to get involved and do something like that.
Yeah, because well, again, I'm not a drummer, but I'm going to say La Villa Strangiato is probably one of the most difficult drum songs to play.
Um, it is like it's a little solo section. There's some weird counting going through that with some shots.
Right.
It's sometimes in it's in any music. But in particular with Rush, I think like Tom Sawyer, I don't consider it to be one of the hardest songs, but many do consider, and even Neil says he still thinks that that's one of the most challenging songs to execute perfectly. Sure, absolutely, right. But there's a couple of different Neils over the years, right? One of them is Drum Olympic Neil in one hand, right? Perfect
Yeah.
10, I ran the fastest from point A to point B, or I got from point A to point B is from here to here, a distance thing in a short amount of time. That's more of a physical thing, which involves chops, pure chops,
Right.
speed chops, power chops, precision chops as well. But the last Rush record that was made, the last album they did, I think that's the hardest record to play. The form structure was way harder, and then because of form structure, it makes what you do on drums much more difficult. So it's one of those things, like Middletown Dreams is a song off of Power Windows,
Yeah.
beautiful song, and you listen to it and it's so poppy, and most people would just take it as a pop song and be like, that's not that hard. It's more challenging, I think, than Tom Sawyer is,
Really?
you know but someone who maybe doesn't have as much technique would think Tom Sawyer's more difficult.
Or someone who's not a drummer and just
Mm-hmm.
hears the drums because
Pure out,
right, because
that
it
kind of
sounds
thing.
so
Yeah,
flashy, right?
yeah.
I did see an interview with Neil once where he said he's never played Tom Sawyer well at a show.
There's I'm gonna say I'm gonna use the word that I hate when people say, I dislike when they say it to me. You're a perfectionist, Neil. Right? But
Well,
that's what makes you pro
right, that's what makes him so good.
is attention to detail. And
Right.
if he didn't hold himself to a certain bar, to a certain standard, how do you achieve that night after night?
Exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah.
was thinking about this the other day, man. I'm so sad that I'll never get to see Rush or Van Halen again, ever.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's too sad what happened with those guys.
it is. We
Unbelievable.
definitely we lived through an amazing era of
The
some,
best.
some greats that, yeah.
I mean, I missed Hendrix, but
Hmm.
Van Halen, like even Alex Van Halen is a fantastic drummer.
Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't
Yeah.
get the credit he deserves, but yeah,
Yeah.
Geddy Lee, my God, Geddy Lee.
Yeah.
So what can we expect on Saturday night? By the way, you're in Picton,
Yep.
Ontario. Do you
Yep.
remember?
Yep.
I'm
I do
just
now.
reminding you in case you forget.
Yeah.
And Richmond Hill on Friday, I believe.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. So what can we expect? How is this show going to be any different from the last show I saw a year ago?
Well, I think there's a couple different songs. I can't tell you what they are. I'd have to kill you if you knew beforehand. But there's a few other songs, a couple more Max Webster songs in there, and I think there's also two more Kim songs. There's one from Oral Fixation, which is my favorite Kim Mitchell record. Kim.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I'm just going to take a guess. You don't have to tell me. Oral Fixations, I'm going, what was that one? World's Such a Wonder.
uh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's such a fantastic song. No,
Yeah, yeah, and
right.
it's got a little tricky dicky part in the middle with the where it's like it feels like six crossing through the 4/4 bar lines and stuff, and then it ends like that as well. It's kind of like on the guitar riff that happens, and it
Okay.
goes through so many cycles. It's one of those moments where it's like, okay, here we go. Focus.
Wait a second though. That's interesting. Oral Fixations was your favorite Kim album?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to my buddy the other day and we were talking about Itch and Oral Fixations as being two of the best, but they don't get the same kind of hoopla as,
Hmm.
Rockland or what's it, Akimbo, you
Yeah.
know? Wow, that's awesome. I'm glad you said that. Those are fantastic records.
Yeah.
Lemonway. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And the production on that record, I'm a huge fan of that too. It sounds amazing. And
Uh,
Greg Critchley was the drummer on that one.
right. And the early days, it was what? Paul DeLong, right?
Yep, Paul did the first records, and then Lou Molino
Yeah.
came and did Rockland Wonderland.
The guy from Loverboy played too, right? What was his name?
He Matt Fournette. That was
He was alive.
he did I'm a Wild Party. So
Okay.
he toured with him, and then they recorded I'm a Wild Party, and then there was also All We Are. There was a live version. It
Yeah.
was I Am a Wild Party CD.
Rapid fire. Pew, 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 pew.
Okay, I've got a couple rapid fire questions here for you.
Yep.
Okay? I could probably talk to you for another hour, but work calls. So rapid fire, stupid questions. Well, not necessarily stupid, but quick answers, quick questions, okay? Um, Best concert you ever saw?
Rush.
Which tour?
Presto.
Presto?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I saw that in Montreal. Yeah, that was a good tour with the Bunnies.
Yeah. Sorry, I just made a mistake. It was Roll the Bones.
Roll the Bones was good
It
too.
wasn't the Bunnies. Yeah, it was the next one after that. Yeah.
Right,
I
the
saw
Bunnies.
it saw it in Worcester and
Okay.
around Boston.
Okay, then can I ask a crazy question?
Yep.
Did Primus open that show?
No, it was Vinnie Moore, I think, the
Oh.
guitar shredder guy.
Yeah, I interviewed him one time. He's a great
Yeah.
guy. Because I saw them near Boston. I was just on a trip and I happened to see
Hmm.
was playing that night and I went and Primus opened.
Oh wow. Yeah.
That might have been Presto. Anyway, um, first concert you ever saw.
First concert I ever saw. Real concert, real band in a venue was
Yeah,
Wild Tea in the Spirit.
I remember them.
Tony Springer,
Yeah, yeah.
who I went on to play with for I think I was playing with Tony for like 3 years after I got to Toronto. Yeah.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
Oh,
He
wow.
uh he was playing in St. John, New Brunswick. I just turned of age to get into a bar to watch a band, and that was the show. However, my first concert that I ever played with a professional artist, I think I was 16 or 17. My parents had to be there. It was with Dutch Mason. I don't know if you know who Dutch Mason was. He's
No,
the Prime Minister of the Blues. He
and
yeah, he's like the BB King of Canada. He was the blues legend guy. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'd have to look him up for sure. Wow, Wild T, that's a name from the past.
Yep.
He was good.
Yep.
He was really good. The band or artist that I mean, you've played with a whole bunch of people. Is it true you played with Justin Timberlake? Did I read that properly?
I was in a video. I was going to say "Sexy Back." No, it wasn't a "Sexy Back." It was a song called "Give It to Me." That it was a Nelly, Justin Timberlake, and Timbaland song, and then we were like used in the video for that. And Justin performed with us at Madison Square Gardens, and we played "Sexy Back," which was kind of cool. And "Sexy Back," "Give It to Me." I can't remember if there's a third song on there or not. And yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
that with him. Yeah,
But the question was, all these bands that you've played with, artists that you've played with, who do you want to play with? If someone gave you a call, who would you hope is the next person to give you a call?
that's a tough one. I
That
mean,
is.
my ultimate when I was younger, the bands that I wanted to be in was like Santana, and in particular, it was '90s Santana. Um, and Tower of Power was another band that I always dreamed of being in, typically an instrumental kind of thing as well. Like that's why Santana, Tower Power has its instrumental moments and stuff, right? I really enjoy that kind of rocky, jazzy fusion kind of stuff, Tony Williams, I love that kind of Tony Williams lifetime. Sting, Michael Jackson,
Okay, now the most important question of the day. Are you ready for this?
Uh-oh.
Pineapple on pizza or not?
With ham.
Pineapple and ham is okay.
Yeah.
It's a big topic these days on the interwebs. So I thought
I think it works with ham.
I do too. I don't know
With
why
pepperoni? No way.
I don't know why people are so against this. I'll see you at the show on Saturday,
Yep.
and yeah, kick ass. Find that pocket early. Right on. And we'll talk again. This is fantastic. Thanks. I've wanted to talk to you since the first time I saw you, but
Awesome, man. Thank you.
I really appreciate this. You're the man.
Okay, buddy.
All right. Drive safe when you get to Picton.
I will, man.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.